What is up, Broncos fans? I am back here again to do another quick video. I was really pleased with what the Broncos were able to accomplish last night in round one. This is the first time in quite some time in back-to-back years and back-to-back drafts that honestly I'm really pleased and really just overall optimistic on what John Elway was able to accomplish. Really big fan of what him, Vic Fangio and company did last night. The Broncos decided to trade out of that 10 selection, trade back with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 20th overall pick, the 52nd pick in the second round, and then a 2020 third round pick. Honestly, I thought this was a pretty good trade for the Broncos. Devin Bush was sitting there right on the board for us. So was Dwayne Haskins. I thought either one of them would have been a phenomenal pick, especially Devin Bush in the middle of our defense, filling that need that we have at the linebacker position and kind of being the head of Vic Fangio's defense. I think he would have really done wonders for our defensive unit. But obviously Pittsburgh needed a replacement for Ryan Shazier. They were willing to pay the price to trade up. And the Broncos, I guess, for the most part, felt that was an appropriate amount of assets to get in return to move back and pass on drafting a player like Devin Bush or passing on Dwayne Haskins. And ultimately, I really liked the pick, given who we were able to move back and take at number 20 with how the board fell. But I think to trade out of number 10, again, we're a team, we don't have like one really glaring need. We have a bunch of different needs. So we were kind of in this position to where we really could have just took the best player available at number 10, and we had a plethora of options on the board for us. And trading back, I think, actually was one of the smarter options by John Elway. And we've seen John Elway move up and down the draft board in years past, so this is nothing new for us Broncos fans and seeing the Broncos trade back. But I thought, given this year specifically and what we got back, again, trading back 10 spots and getting 2 additional picks, one this year and one next year, ultimately I really liked what John Elway did here. I like getting 2 additional picks, and honestly I think it was a great move for Pittsburgh as well. I think Devin Bush will fit in great in their defense and really give them a hell of a replacement for Ryan Shazier, of course, with what he's kind of left there with obviously the unfortunate and untimely injury he suffered a couple seasons ago and that he's still recovering from. Devin Bush, I think, will definitely kind of fill that void there. So I think it was kind of a win-win for both teams. With the 20th selection, the Broncos selected tight end Noah Fant out of Iowa. He was one of the guys I talked about in my draft preview when I went over 6 prospects that I really liked in this year's class and I think would fit well in Denver. He was one of the guys I mentioned alongside TJ Hawkinson, his teammate out of Iowa. I think both these Iowa tight ends are really special, and I said as much in my draft preview video that regardless if we were able to get Hawkinson or Fant, that I think, you know, both were going to be very special tight ends regardless of what team got them. And to end up with one of them is honestly, it's really satisfying as a Broncos fan. As I mentioned earlier, it gives me a lot of hope for our offense now going forward. And I think this is a home run pick by John Elway at number 20. I truly believe that. Honestly, you know, in the past, and I've learned my lesson in my past draft recap videos when I give my instant reaction to picks, to not try to be so overzealous, whether it be overly positive or overly negative. I kind of learned my lesson with that in terms of the 2016 draft and with Paxton Lynch, and even I think in 2017 with a guy like Carlos Henderson, who we took in the second round, I thought was going to be a stud, could potentially be the next Antonio Brown, and you know, he's never, I believe, played a game for us. So you know, I've tried to kind of temper my expectations and being overly bold, you know, when making these draft recap videos now, but I really do love this pick of Noah Fant, and again, I think him and TJ Hawkinson are two really great prospects at the tight end position. I think both are going to have great careers. TJ Hawkinson actually went number 8 to Detroit right before we picked at number 10. It would have been interesting to see if he fell to number 10 if the Broncos still would have traded out of that pick. But nonetheless, we end up with Noah Fant at number 20. I think it's great value. I think you can make an argument Noah Fant is probably, you know, a top 10 to 15 player in this draft, and to get him at number 20 while securing 2 additional picks, another second rounder that can utilize tonight. Again, I just think all in all, that's a really smart move by John Elway. We've had opportunities in past drafts to draft a tight end in the first round and potentially kind of filled that void that we've seemingly always had at that position since Shannon Sharpe retired in 2003. and we had a chance to do that most recently. I think in 2017 we took Garrett Bowles over David Njoku and Evan Ingram. We had a chance to get both of them. Obviously, both of them have gone on to have pretty successful careers so far in the 2 or 3 seasons they played. And Garrett Bowles has kind of been, for the most part, I'd say, more so on the side of a bust than a successful pick. So to see us kind of redeem ourselves and see John Elway redeem himself by kind of addressing that position and not passing on a guy once again that could be a really dynamic playmaker for your offense at a position you desperately have needed it for years now, it was great to see. And it was great to see John Elway pull the trigger this time and select Noah Fant with that 20th selection. Again, I think he's a game changer offensively for us. I think he really adds a much needed playmaker to our offense. Obviously, going into this season, you got Emmanuel Sanders coming off an Achilles injury. We lose DT. You got Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton entering their second years. And then the tight end position obviously has always been a question mark. You have Jeff Heuerman and Jake Butt, but both of them have huge injury issues. So to bring Noah Fant not only into our tight end room and our tight end core, but our entire receiving core, I think is a huge upgrade for us, and really is again, I said this the past couple seasons, how the Broncos have really needed to add some juice on the offensive side of the football, really have needed to add some playmakers on that side of the football, and this guy is definitely, he's definitely got to bring some juice, so to say, to the offense, and really, you've now added a really dynamic weapon to your offensive arsenal. And again, I think with bringing in Joe Flacco, to give him a tight end like this, of Noah Fant's not only ability but his athletic ability as well, I think will be great for Joe Flacco as well. Joe Flacco has shown in the past during his time in Baltimore he loves tight ends, and he really can utilize that position well. Just look at, for the most part, his rapport with Dennis Pitta throughout his career. Once again, there in Baltimore, Dennis Pitta, you look at two great seasons he had in Baltimore with Joe Flacco, 2012 and 2016. In 2012, Dennis Pitta was targeted 94 times. He finished with 61 catches, 669 yards, and 7 touchdowns that season. And then in 2016, his last season, he had 121 targets by Joe Flacco. Again, Joe Flacco loves the tight end. 86 catches, 729 yards, and 2 touchdowns that season. So again, giving Joe Flacco a weapon like this at the tight end position, given what he's done in the past with a guy like Dennis Pitta, and there's been other tight ends as well, though, gives me a lot of hope to what Noah Fant can do, not only over the next couple seasons and just his potential overall, but just immediately day one. I think him and Joe Flacco can really develop a nice chemistry, a nice rapport. Talking about a guy who arguably in this draft, Noah Fant could be the biggest mismatch weapon in the 2019 draft class. This is a guy that, obviously is a tight end, but he can really line up all over the field. He's a guy that's played, as an H-back before. He can line up in the slot as a wide receiver. So he can be really kind of a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses, and you really have the versatility to line him up all over the field, given his ability not only as an athlete, but his ability obviously as a pass catcher and a receiver. And Fant's obviously a guy that's going to be able to make plays in the middle of the field for us offensively, which again is something that we haven't had in years from that position. So once again, that opens up things for your receivers on the outside like Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders, having a guy like Noah Fant now to attack the middle of the field, and really just has that ability to be such a threat in the seam, go down the seam, and once again just be a matchup nightmare for opposing secondaries and opposing defenses. He's obviously going to be, I think, one of our premier red zone threats. To go in the red zone and have a running back like Phillip Lindsay in the backfield, have a big wide receiver like Cortland Sutton, and now a tight end like Noah Fant, you really got a lot of options, I think, in terms of play calling at your disposal, especially in terms of your red zone offense. I think he's going to help improve us there. And again, the combination of Fant and Cortland Sutton, I think, is going to be really, really tough for defenses to match up with for years to come in the red zone. He's got that second gear speed. He's a freak athlete. He's got that special change of direction ability for his size. He really showcased that at the combine. He blew the combine up. You're talking about a guy at 6'4", 249 pounds, still only 21 years old as well, really just scratching the surface of what he can become. But you look at some of these numbers he put up at the combine. He runs a 4.5 40 at 249 pounds. Puts 20 reps up on the bench press, has a 39.5-inch vertical, runs a 6.81 three-cone drill. I mean, again, just really showing off just that freakish athleticism that he has. Again, that special kind of agility and speed that he has. And this is a guy who, you know, I do think his blocking could be polished up, but I really think he is an underrated and undervalued blocker. I think he's going to help us in the run game much more so than people expect early on. And I don't know if it was because he, you know, played alongside TJ Hawkinson at Iowa, who has been regarded as one of the best blocking tight ends to come out of college in a long time. So Noah Fant was kind of overshadowed and overlooked as a blocker because he's being compared to TJ Hawkinson all the time. But he really is a nasty blocker. He will punch guys in the mouth. And the production at Iowa shows just kind of that ability he has in the passing game to be a mismatch and a playmaker. I mean, 69 catches for Noah Fant for 1,013 yards and 18 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons at Iowa. And again, that's playing next to a guy like TJ Hawkinson, who's a hell of a player, hell of a talent and prospect in his own right at the tight end position. So to put up those kind of numbers is so special. Again, freaky athlete is Noah Fant. And I think this really fills a void at the tight end position that, quite frankly, we've had since Shannon Sharpe retired in 2003. And I mean, if you go over the tight end just quickly here that we've had since Shannon Sharpe retired in 2003, you'll see why the tight end position has been so kind of thin for the Broncos in terms of lacking a playmaker and lacking someone that can be real dynamic from that position. I mean, since 2003, you got Jeb Putsier, who never had more than 2 touchdowns in a season while playing here in Denver. Then you talk about a guy like Steven Alexander, who I think played in Denver from 2005 to 2006. His best season here in Denver, he had 21 catches, 170 yards, and 1 touchdown. Then Tony Scheffler from 2006 to 2009, he had 2 seasons with 500-plus yards and at least 4 touchdowns, so he was fairly productive. But again, I think Noah Fant can easily produce 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, quite frankly, for multiple seasons. I think he has that kind of potential. Then you look at Daniel Graham, 2007 to 2010. His best season here, he had 32 catches for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns. Again, respectable numbers, but those are pretty, I'd say, average numbers for the tight end position, especially with how that position has evolved now in the passing game in the NFL in 2019. Then you got Daniel Fells. He played 1 season here. He had 19 catches, 256 yards, and 3 touchdowns, I think, in 2011. Then you look at Jacob Tamme and Joel Dreesen. Tamme, he had 1 good year in 2012, 52 catches and 555 yards, but outside of that, he did nothing. And then Joel Dreesen had 5 touchdowns in 2012, but again, after that, really did nothing for the Broncos. Then, of course, we had Julius Thomas, who, you know, I think showed later on when he signed with Jacksonville as a free agent. He was kind of a product of Peyton Manning, but obviously had some great years in Denver. His last 2 seasons in Denver, he had 108 catches and 24 touchdowns. It was just ridiculous. But I think Noah Fant has the potential to put up those kind of numbers and be more consistent. I think overall, he's just not only a better athlete than Julius Thomas was, but he's definitely a better blocker, just a better overall player at the tight end position. Then we had Owen Daniels there in 2015. He had 46 catches, 517 yards, 3 touchdowns in his lone season here. Again, pretty, I'd say, average numbers at the position. And then obviously you look at our current tight end situation. You obviously have Jeff Heuerman and Jake Budd. Jeff Heuerman hasn't played a full season yet since being drafted by the Broncos, I think, back in 2016. And Jake Budd obviously played 3 games this last season, but then tore his ACL. He was coming off a torn ACL, I believe, out of college. So huge injury issues with both those guys. Neither one of them really has been productive. Matt Lacoste, the last 2 seasons in Denver, last year had 24 catches, 250 yards, and a touchdown. Again, none of these numbers are really eye-popping. None of these guys are really, you know, you're not seeing many Pro Bowlers or All-Pros or special talents at the tight end position. Vernon Davis, A.J. Derby also played some games with us at the tight end position. So I mean, like, what, 14 or 15 guys you've had since 2003, since Shannon Sharpe retired. So again, you really have not filled that void at the tight end position. I think Noah Fant can finally be that guy to kind of fill those shoes that Shannon Sharpe left behind, and really has a shot to be the best tight end we've had since Shannon Sharpe. He has that talent. He has that potential. Again, you're talking about a guy who really could be the biggest mismatch in this entire draft class. I think he can be a nightmare for opposing teams and help us in a plethora of ways. He has so much potential, freak athlete, and such a dynamic playmaker. I'm really happy that John Elway made this selection, didn't pass on the dynamic tight end this time for an offensive lineman or a safer pick. And I love this selection. So Broncos taking Noah Fant at number 20 in the 2019 NFL Draft. I think it's a great selection. Leave me a comment below, guys. What do you think of the Broncos trading back and getting tight end Noah Fant out of Iowa, and how do you think he fits in within our offense? Are you guys excited about bringing him in? And what do you think of what the Broncos did in terms of the first round of the 2019 NFL Draft? I just love it. To get 2 additional picks and then still get Noah Fant on top of it, you got to give John Elway a ton of credit and respect for that. I think he really did a phenomenal job here once again in consecutive years in the first round of the 2019 NFL Draft. And now we move on to rounds 2 and 3 tonight. We again now have that additional second round pick from Pittsburgh. Got some ammunition to utilize. Chris Harris is also out there. His contract situation in the future with the team right now is kind of questionable, to say the least. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe we trade him, get more picks. But obviously you'd like to see the Broncos in the second and third round probably look to target an offensive lineman, maybe a defensive back. Maybe they go quarterback if there's someone they really like in this class. A wide receiver wouldn't be bad. Again, we have so many needs that we kind of can just go best player available. So looking forward to seeing what the Broncos do tonight in rounds 2 and 3 of the 2019 NFL Draft. Appreciate you guys watching. Like the video, subscribe, share it, comment below. Help grow this channel. Helps me out. Can't understate it enough again how much I appreciate that. And welcome Noah Fant to the Denver Broncos. Think we got a really dynamic playmaker here at the tight end position, and I'm really excited to see what his future holds in the orange and blue. Take care, guys.